A lot of people have wondered about this particular topic, and it's one topic that is covered in so many misconceptions. So what exactly is the Big Bang? Well, you see, it is quite hard to be led to believe that there's a person who has never once paused for a minute to wonder about the questions raised by English physicist and professor of particle physics Brain Cox. Did our universe have a beginning? Why is there a universe like this one? If time began at the Big Bang, then was there a time before time? Were there ridges and floors and filaments and galaxies? The question of origins isn't only a big and deep one, but it is also a question that has cut through all human culture. And this is evident through the simple fact that every human culture has some sort of creation story or planned mystical beginnings for the study of cosmology. However, I think it is very important to mention that one thing we can all at least agree on is that whatever science has to say on this particular topic of origins should be taken with an elevated air of respect due to the mere fact that it is more than plain speculation and passing fables. Plus, if you think about it, it is only through the understanding of modern science that we have been able to provide firm theories affirming some of the answers to the questions of origins we once called hypotheses. For a very long time, through the course of human history, many people once believed that the universe had no beginning or end and was therefore infinite. However, with the advent of the Big Bang theory, no longer could the universe be considered to have existed forever. Plus, Einstein's general theory of relativity implied that the universe and time itself must have had a beginning. Everyone was thus compelled to consider the strong possibility that the universe was finite and has a history and a beginning. Simply put, a cosmic cataclysm unmatched in all of history, the Big Bang. So just what exactly is the Big Bang? The short and long answer is, it's the birth of the universe that occurred about 13.8 billion years ago. How so? Well, let's step back a bit and substantiate that statement. You see, the primary idea driving the Big Bang theory springs from the observations of galaxies indicating that the universe is expanding. That is, the distance between almost any pair of galaxies is increasing. And not only that, but galaxies are moving away or receding from each other at greater speeds in all directions, as if they had all been propelled by some ancient explosive force. It thus logically follows that our universe started very small and has been expanding ever since due to a force we currently vaguely understand and have thus dubbed dark energy. And this idea of an expanding universe didn't sit in well with many people back in the days, including great thinkers like Albert Einstein, because when he formulated the general theory of relativity in 1915, the man was so certain that the universe had to be static to a point where he modified his theory just to make that possible by introducing a so-called cosmological constant into his equations, something we know today as Einstein's greatest blunder. However, it should be stated plainly that the idea of some sort of expanding universe has been around since the 1920s, when Georges Lemaître, a Belgian Catholic priest, astronomer, mathematician, and professor of physics at the Catholic University of Louvain, first proposed that the recession of nearby galaxies can be explained in light of an expanding universe. And this was affirmed by observations made by lawyer-turned-astronomer Edwin Hubble. Lemaître called what we now know as the Big Bang the hypothesis of the primeval atom, the beginning of the world, or more poetically, a day without a yesterday. In one of my all-time favorite books called A Short History of Nearly Everything, author Bill Bryson explains that even after Lemaître's propositions, the idea of the Big Bang didn't really become an active notion in cosmology until the mid-1960s, when two radio astronomers made an extraordinary and inadvertent discovery. The two were Arnold Penzias and Robert Wilson. In 1965, they were trying to make use of a large communication antenna owned by Bell Laboratories in New Jersey while studying faint microwave signals from the Milky Way galaxy. But they were bothered by a persistent background noise, some sort of hiss, making their experimental work close to impossible. They even thought the noise was some kind of interference caused by bed poop. This hissing type noise came from every point in the sky, day and night. They did everything possible to stop it. They tested every electrical system, they rebuilt instruments, checked circuits, wiggled wires, dusted plugs, but nothing worked. While Penzias and Wilson were struggling with the hissing noise, just 30 miles away from them at Princeton University, Robert Dickey was leading a team of scientists working on how to find the very thing Wilson and Penzias were trying so hard to get rid of. These researchers were pursuing an idea that had been suggested in 1948 by some Russian-born astrophysicists that If you look deep enough into space, you should find some cosmic background radiation left over from the Big Bang, if it really did occur. And that's precisely what the two astronomers found. They were seeing the first photons, the most ancient light in the universe, converted into microwaves by time and distance, a remnant left off by the Big Bang and that which we now call the cosmic microwave background, or CMB for short. For one thing, the discovery of CMB simply goes to show that true to the theory of the Big Bang, the expanding universe must have been dense in the past. Thus, there must have been, in the very beginning, a point of infinite density. In other words, the point at which the laws of physics break down. Now, with that established, let me not hesitate to mention, even though the temptation is strong, be careful not to think of the Big Bang as a bang or explosion in the conventional sense, or something like fireworks or a bomb. It was rather a vast, sudden expansion of space itself. And you might want to ask, expansion from what exactly? Now, this is where something called the singularity comes in. It is basically an inconceivably small space, far, far tinier than a grain of sand, but in which everything around us, galaxies, stars, planets, were all squeezed together. But to make sense of this, let's take a few steps back to the idea of expansion I mentioned earlier. In a book called The Universe in a Nutshell, the late cosmologist and theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking wrote that if galaxies are moving apart, they must have been closer together in the past. Additionally, from the present rate of expansion, it can be estimated that they must have been very close together, indeed 10 to 15 billion years ago. The logic here is pretty simple. If the universe is getting bigger and bigger, then working backwards, that means in the past, it must have been smaller and smaller, so small that it was infinitesimally small. And the expansion from that state, that was shortly followed by an increased rate in expansion, is what we've come to know as inflation. And that expansion was the beginning of our universe, the start of both space and time, that moment when energy moved along with space as it expanded. And remember, before this, there was no space and time. It's funny to say before, you see, because with no time and space, there is no before. What I mean to say is, don't be tempted to think that the universe was expanding into something. It wasn't expanding into something, because there was no space into which it could expand. So it was creating the space into which it was expanding as it was expanding. That sounds funny, but it's not. It's deep. And I sure as hell know that, like every thinking biped, you're tempted to ask, was there something else that actually caused the Big Bang? Or more smartly put, was there a time before time? And that question at best is an outcry for causality. I mean, don't we all feel every effect must have a cause? Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is, all great thinkers don't know the answer to that question. It's an area filled with speculation and hard intellectual debate. But feel free to put your God there as the reason if you so please, or like me, have the honesty to simply say, you don't know, and continue stroking your chin and reading those piles of books. And should anyone ask, what is the origin of our visible universe? Remember the words of American-Canadian theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss. Only a hot Big Bang can produce the observed abundance of light elements and maintain consistency with the current observed expansion of the universe. Only a hot Big Bang.